Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the webinar titled Managing Oracle Clinical RDC and TMS User Accounts with Ease, presented by Michelle Engler from BioPharm Systems. I'm Eugene Stefanoff, the Marketing Manager at BioPharm, and I'll be going over some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Michelle. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. However, you may submit questions to the speaker at any time today by typing them in the chat feature located on the left side of your screen. Please note that other webinar participants will not see your questions or comments. Nonetheless, your questions will be addressed anonymously as time allows towards the end of the presentation. If you still have unanswered questions after the webinar or would like to request information from BioPharm, feel free to visit the company's website for contact information. We will also share specific contact information during the presentation. As a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on BioPharm's website within 24 hours. We will also be emailing you a link to the recording. This concludes our housekeeping items. I would now like to turn the call over to Michelle Engler.
Well, good morning and welcome. Maybe good afternoon, depending on your time zone. This is a webinar on a clinical account management tool that's been in development at BioPharm and been released to production. It is a tool designed to manage Oracle Clinical, RDC, and TMS accounts. I will start with a presentation, a short presentation, and go into a live demo. Any questions that you have, feel free to ask them through the chat window. I will be answering the questions at the end of the presentation. First of all, this is me. I am Michelle Engler. I'm a clinical systems developer. I've been with BioPharm for 12 or 13 years at this point. I have experience in development using many different languages, Perl, C++, PL SQL, using Ajax, Oracle. I've been working with Oracle Clinical and Oracle Clinical Technologies for a number of years. I'm familiar with the back end, the front end, how things are set up in the system. So I have a well-rounded experience with the application. Also, I'm experienced with FDA 21 CFR Part 11, making systems compliant with the regulations and how the documentation and quality assurance needs to occur in this regulated industry. So first of all, Clinical Account Manager overview. Here's what I'll go over. First, I'll talk about what is Accel-Account Manager, what is a clinical account in terms of Accel-Account Manager and the systems that we work in here, Oracle Clinical, RDC, TMS. I'll talk about what happens when there's a new account request, password reset, and I'll compare this between when you do have Accel-Account Manager and when you don't have Accel-Account Manager and what that process looks like internally with resources. I'll go over some of the features of Accel-Account Manager and then talk briefly about the installation and technology stack, and finally do a demonstration. So Accel-Account Manager is a web-based system. It was developed to become a single source solution for managing clinical accounts, their passwords, the various components of clinical accounts. It is available through an internet URL or intranet URL. Can be used with multiple browsers. There's no plugins involved. This is the administration tool main screen of the Accel-Account Manager that you see here. Okay, in terms of Accel-Account Manager and OC, what is a clinical account? A clinical account is sort of a single entity in that it connects to a single person. However, in the world of Oracle Clinical, a clinical account has many different components that cross several servers and database, and also have to involve several resources in actually creating these clinical accounts. So, like for example, let's say this is your production environment. In your production environment, you have a database. You have a database operating system, which is your server that hosts your database. You may or may not have a report server, and you may or may not also have a SAS server. In the database, you have an account. You have database roles. You have password profiles. You have to assign OC study access, and finally RDC study site access. In an operating system, for the operating system of the database server, you have to have an account as well for running psub jobs. That includes a home directory and a log directory set up on the server. A report server, similarly, you need to have an account and a report directory. On the SAS server, again, you need to have an account and a SAS directory. So, wow, if you look at this, a single account in production has all of these different elements to it. And historically, this has been done by hand or has had custom tools developed to manage certain parts of it, but it does involve several resources. Now, this is your production environment. Now, let's say you have additional environments. You have a test environment. Well, now I've just doubled that. Or if you have a development environment too, we've just tripled that. So as you can see, a clinical account isn't as straightforward as conceptually we would like to think of it. It does involve all these different pieces, which causes, possibility for errors to happen when setting up accounts. It causes a time to actually create all of these different things. So Accel-Account Manager is designed to address all of this. So here's an example of how a new account request would go in today's world. And I followed BioPharm's process when putting together these slides. Your process at your company may be a little bit different, but in the gist of it, it still sort of involves the same kind of steps. So in this case, we have an end user, and they have the question, may I have an account? Generally, that gets posed to some sort of a manager, and that manager will communicate perhaps with a help desk, or you have a support representative who will receive some sort of a request, and then that person will start coordinating the creation of this account. So they notify the database administrator and the IT professional. The IT professional has to create certain IT components of the new account, and then notify the support representative that those components have been completed. The database administrator does a similar process, but on the database side. Then they notify the support representative they've been completed. Then the support representative gets that communication back, and they will notify the manager that the account is ready. The manager still has another step. Perhaps the manager does this, or they have another team member that does this. But at this point, the account still needs to have study access assigned to it. So there's the OC study access and the RDC study site access in the case you're using RDC. After that's complete, the manager will notify the end user that their account is ready, and now the end user can log in. And so wow, if you stand back from the slide and you look at all of the things that have to go into creating an account, that's pretty labor intensive for something that has to happen multiple times within the course of a year or within the course of a study to create all of these different accounts. Now let's look at what it would be like if you had Accel-Account Manager. In this case, you have an end user say, may I have an account? Some sort of manager would say, yes, you can have an account. Let me add it with Accel-Account Manager. Let me add the study site security. As soon as they're done setting that up in Accel-Account Manager, an automatic email notification with credentials will go to the end user, and then the end user can verify their account and then go ahead and actually use their account. So it's a much simpler process with Accel-Account Manager. We've freed up our DBA and our IT professional. We haven't bogged down our help desk with these sorts of requests. We've kept it in-house where the security and accounts really, people who have the expertise to understand what needs to be put in place are there to manage it. So in the case of a password reset, we have a similar process. Let's say an end user forgets their password. They have to communicate with the manager that they forgot their password, who will then notify the support representative, who will in turn notify the database administrator and the IT professional, who will reset the passwords as needed on the various components, who will then send notification back to the support representative, who will then notify the manager, who will then finally notify the end user. And oh my gosh, this user came in the morning to do their work, and they forgot their password, and now they have to wait for this whole process to ensue before they can get going on their work again. Well, in the case of the Accel-Account Manager, the end user will, if they forget their password, they can actually log into Accel-Account Manager, reset it themselves, and then be up and running immediately, and not involving all of those additional resources. So what is this Accel-Account Manager? What can it do? So in the case of Accel-Account Manager, for managing clinical accounts, it can create these accounts, update the accounts. It manages the profiles for the accounts and the database roles for the accounts. And then a very important functionality for Accel-Account Manager is that it's designed to be a single source entity. What this means is I have perhaps a production, a test, and a development environment. I don't have to log into 3 different Accel-Account Managers to manage the accounts. An account in the terms of Accel-Account Manager in this world is, in the systems world, is a single entity that has access to multiple environments. And by that I mean when you want to give access to additional environments to an account, it's a single screen where you can set that access up, 1 login, not 3. So it is cross-environment in terms of its management of clinical accounts, and it links it to a single clinical account in Accel-Account Manager. So I'll show you that live as well. In addition, it has account maintenance functionality for the administrator, such as resetting several passwords at once. You can lock and disable 1 or more clinical accounts as needed. It also has the ability to generate clinical accounts in masse. It's particularly useful in the case you have maybe perhaps a large RDC study starting up, and you want to set up maybe 100 accounts. Well, that's very time consuming using today's process. But using Accel-Account Manager, you simply set up an Excel spreadsheet and you can load them into the system, and it generates all the different components and all the environments necessary for those clinical accounts. In addition, it provides a facility for granting and revoking RDC study site security for the users in masse to help facilitate this process of setting up multiple accounts at once, setting up security for multiple accounts at once. There's a screen to help to manage the study site security. And finally, everything that's done through the Accel-Account Manager has complete logs that are available to be reviewed by the administrator, to be queried based on date, based on user, and can also be downloaded into Excel for further processing as needed. And similarly, there's a complete log of all the system-generated emails that, again, can be queried and downloaded to Excel as needed. For the end user, we give the functionality of resetting their own password, of setting up and resetting security questions, which are utilized for the purposes of resetting one's password, and likewise to allow them the ability to retrieve their username in the case that they forgot what that was. There is account security protection in that the user themselves gets, the user him or herself gets to customize the password, what they want it to be. That password that they set is synchronized not only to the database accounts but also to the operating system account that gets created. So if there's a Unix account, the database server has a Unix account, then when they reset their password or set it to a customized value, all of the passwords get synchronized. That functionality is customizable by the client if it's not desired. However, it does provide a facility to keep the password in sync among all components of a clinical account. In addition, it has this automatic lockout in the case that a user is trying to reset his or her password multiple times with failure. The system will put a hard lock on the account, which requires the administrator to remove that hard lock. And it does notify the email address, the user via the email address associated with the account that is being attempted to be reset. It also notifies the administrator that this operation occurred. So with that notification and with that protection, it helps to assure that the credentials are not compromised. In addition, there are automatic notifications sent out of account credentials. No longer do we have to have a support representative or anyone else putting together what those credentials are. The users are actually able to manage them themselves, and then they're getting automatic notification regarding temporary passwords that are set. Their actual passwords are just known. That's what they set them to be. That doesn't get emailed or even stored in any way. And then automatic notifications of important changes. So when an account is updated, when security settings are applied, the user gets an automatic email notifying that that happened. And again, the administrator is kept in the loop in the case of an error with an account or a locking action that occurs. So how is this installed? What does the technology stack look like? So in the case of Accel-Account Manager, it gets installed one time. It gets installed on the production application server. Well, in terms of production, it gets installed one time. Often there's a series of release in terms of installing in your test and doing QA and all that kind of work. But in terms of production use, it only needs to be installed on the production server. And then what happens is it's linked to your additional environments. You don't install it 3 times. And so that's the single install sort of methodology. Its technology stack is Active State Perl with Mod Perl, Apache Web Server, PL SQL. It also has JavaScript and HTML involved with it. So this is the conclusion of the presentation. I'm going to go into the demo now without further ado. Here we are. Okay. So this is the administration tool for the Accel-Account Manager. There is a credential here that you can enter. This user has to have a specific role assigned to it. That role is managed through Accel-Account Manager as well. When I log in, I come to the main menu here, and I want to create a user account. So I'll click on Create User Account. Let's say I have this user, Mary Engler, that needs an account. What I would do is enter the username here. It does allow for RDC accounts without the ops dollar, by the way, as long as they're not being granted Oracle Clinical Access. You can set it up without the ops dollar. And I enter the email address for that user. Now, there's a very important feature in this system, which is a management of these email domains, saying that certain email domains have the ability to have administrative type access, and certain email domains do not. So In the case of the biopharm.com domain, I have it set up in this environment to have administrative access. But I have another domain here called noadmin.com that when I enter that, certain features become disabled. I can no longer grant administrative access. I can't grant all study access. And my database roles get limited as well. And that is all configurable in a particular install. So if whatever roles would be hidden or shown is also configurable. So in this case, I'm going to do my email address. Everything becomes activated. And then you can see there's this environment, OC master. So in theory, that would be your production environment to start out with. If you select or unselect certain features, things can appear or disappear on the screen. So in the case of OC access, when I check it, this box to specify OC study access appears, where I can select all. Or if I select study access, I can select specific studies with control-click to grant access to this user. In addition, if I wanted to grant RDC access, I'd simply click this box, and this other area of the screen would appear where I could add an RDC study. And here's what that looks like. I would click Add RDC Study, and I have a list of only my RDC studies. I click Add Study, and it comes up with the granularity, the granular security options for RDC on the study level. And then let's say I want to add a site level as well. I can just click this link here, and I get a list of my sites, and I can add them to the system. Now I go ahead and I click the security settings at the site. I can click the security settings at, the security settings at the study, and I can click the security settings at the site as well. If I click admin, I get a warning that this is an administrative privilege, just to ensure that that's what I intended to do. Of course, I can add another study if I like, or I can remove these studies as well. So this is one of the ways you can set up RDC study access. There's another screen that I'll show you where you can set them up in mass as well. Here I get to decide which password policy to apply to my account. And then finally, I get to select the roles that I'm interested in granting to my account. Now this is the production environment labeled here. If I wanted to add another environment, I would click this link, Add Environment. That will come up with my additional new environments that have not already been added, where I can then get another set of options for specifying security for that environment for this particular clinical account. But there's also this feature to link a new environment to a master environment. And this would be particularly useful in the case that you had maybe a test environment that was a copy of your production, and you wanted your accounts to have the same security settings in production as they have in test, perhaps as in development. You would click this option to link it to the master environment. And in that case, when it gets added, it would just mention that it's been linked. And so all the security settings I selected for my primary environment, my production environment perhaps, would then get applied to this environment as well automatically. Along the same note, if I decided I just wanted to add it and be able to customize the features, I just wouldn't select that link functionality. And then here again, I get to set up what the study access should be and the roles. So now what I'll do is click Create User Account. What this is going to do is go out and create the database account, the OS server account. If it was a report server account, it would create that, SAS server account. All these different pieces are getting created, and it's doing it in the primary environment, in this case also in the secondary environment because I added that as well. When it's complete, it will automatically send an email notification to the user. So in this case, I have it right here. Now the content of this email is fully customizable. It comes from a template where you can put variables into it. So you can change the way it looks, what it says, all of these things. In this email you'll see click here to verify your account. So now I'm Mary Engler, and this is, I just had a new account created. I was notified that it was created, and now I just click on this link here, and it will open up to a screen where I get to verify my account. Now that's a time-limited functionality. The amount of time that that temporary password will work for Mary is customizable based on security settings. So you can set it to be something like 3 hours. If Mary doesn't verify her account within 3 hours, she will have to notify the administrator to reset her password for her and go through this process again. So I'm going to give a custom password, and then I have the option of selecting my security questions. It is not a case-sensitive answer here, so whether I capitalize this or not is no matter. When I click Verify Account, it's going to go out and reset the password to my custom password on all the different components. In addition, when an account is initially created, it's created in something called a soft lock status. What that means is until that user goes and verifies his or her account, that account will not work in terms of logging onto the system. But after the account has been verified, that soft lock is then removed, and now Mary Engler should be able to log into her account. So let's check that out. So this is Oracle Clinical. I'll log into Oracle Clinical in this case, as long as everything. Let's give it a minute here. Being temperamental with me this morning. There we go. Okay. So here comes my login, and I can log in with my new account, my password, and my database. When I log in, there's the main screen, and I can go and take a look at what was set up in Oracle accounts for Mary Engler. So there it is, Mary Engler, the P subdirectory was set up. That was also created on the server. Report server directory was set up. All of these things have been configured. And so there we go, we have access. Simple enough. Now another thing to realize about the Accel-Account Manager is that in terms of the system, there are many ways to do things like password resets or granting of database roles or setting of security for the studies. So Accel-Account Manager reads this information real time. It doesn't store any of the password credentials or what these accesses are. It's reading that from the system. And the many environments, it's reading it from those environments as well. And so this means if there is a change made to maybe RDC study access using the native functionality in RDC or Oracle Clinical, Accel-Account Manager will pick that up without an issue at all. So the other thing I can do here is I could update an account for Mary Engler. I can go into it. I can modify my settings. I can add to my settings. I have those options as well. As a user, I have now that there's this account, I have the ability to reset the password myself. So this functionality looks like this, where you just click Reset My Password, and you can enter in the username and the email address of your user, and you click Reset Password, and now it's going to ask me one of my security questions. Which I will enter, and then it will go out, and again, it'll set up a temporary set of credentials. It'll email this information to me, and then I'll be able to go and log in and to verify my account and reset my password again. In addition, if I forgot my username, I could retrieve that username by just entering an email address, an answer to a security question. It will show it on the screen, and it will email it to me as well. So I know that these operations are happening in case someone else was looking for my username and was able to get through these steps. There'd be notifications sent out to the email address. Similarly, if I wanted to change my security questions, I could do so by just entering my credentials here. And so here I could set up, I don't know, a different one. Different security questions, and there we go. Now we're all set up. This functionality of the user tool, oftentimes people will split with the way that it's installed, where the user tool component will be installed on the internet, be accessible to all users, including RDC users who may not have VPN access, and then the admin tool is kept within the intranet. So that ability also exists with the system. In addition, you can add links to this user account from the native Oracle clinical functionality. For example, here in OnSite, if I was in here ready to log in, I put these links in here where if I forgot my password, I would click this link. It'll pop up, and I immediately have the functionality available to me for resetting my own password. Similarly, it works that way for retrieving my username credentials. And of course, it can be added onto the Oracle Clinical functionality or the RDC Classic. So here I put a link, can't access your account. You click on that, it comes right to Accel-Account Manager. So it can be integrated in terms of facilitating your users being able to get access to the Accel-Account Manager website. Okay, so let's see. The next thing is to show the mass loading of accounts. So in this case, I would click this link, mass load user account, and in here I can select a file. So if you remember from the presentation, the mass load user account is the functionality where I can generate user accounts from an Excel spreadsheet. So I have an Excel spreadsheet here that I will show to you. Let's see if I can pull it up from this screen. That's not what I was trying to do. There we go. And so here we're looking at an Excel spreadsheet with approximately 3 users. You list your first name, the first name of the user, the last name, the username, email address, all the similar things that need to be specified. There's a format for specifying multiple environments within a single spreadsheet. And this particular spreadsheet will be processed on a line-by-line basis, and by that I mean that let's say that the second user doesn't get created for some reason, that will get flagged and it will continue on to the next user. And then you'll get a resultant file that you can work with in terms of correcting any errors. So let me show you how it actually does its job. I'm selecting the spreadsheet, I'm clicking open, and I just click load account. That takes approximately 7 seconds or so, depending on what sort of access is being granted to the various accounts in order to generate these multiple accounts. When it's complete, it comes up with these 2 links where you can download the resultant Excel file and also look at the log file. So the log file is going to tell me that it succeeded or it did not succeed in terms of creating the accounts. In this case, I've had 3 successes here for generating these 3 users. The Excel file can be downloaded, and this is the file that gives me the status of each account. And then here you can see everything is success. If there was an error, it would say error with a reason for the error. I could then correct that error within this resultant spreadsheet and set my status to reload. And I could then reload this resultant spreadsheet through the system, and it would only address the line items that were set to reload. And so that's a way to sort of iteratively correct your errors in the case of having multiple users and perhaps a few failures that need to be addressed in terms of creating accounts. So after I've actually created these accounts, let's say I'm doing it for an RDC study, I may need to assign RDC privileges. And so in this case, there's a screen in Accel-Account Manager called RDC Privilege Assignment, where I would come in here and select the environment I'm working in, and then I could select the study I'm working in. And then we have this concept of a security scheme. This was come up with by a consultant at BioPharm who has worked with these RDC security settings before. And the thought was, if we can sort of not hard link, but facilitate a standard assignment of these security settings to particular roles, allowing them to be changed, allowing whatever we need to happen, but to give a suggestion of, when I have an investigator, I want my roles to sort of look like this. This is what I want to be doing for my investigators. So you have the ability to customize, to add to this list, to whatever you need to do for these security schemes, to sort of predefine in the system what you would like these roles to look like. And then the next step is to select the users who will get these privileges granted to them. And you can query the users by partial searches. You just type in, if I typed in, U.S., it would take everything with U.S. in the name. If I typed in MAR, I'm going to get Mary. And so it has this ability to really query for whatever users you want to do the assignments for. In the case that you were doing a mass load, you may just want to query by your creation date, find all the users that were created today. And so there's all of our users. And let's say everyone but Mary Engler, we want to assign security access to this RDC 0553 study. Well, I can then associate a particular user with a site. Now, I can associate a user with more than one site. What I would do in this case is I would add this first initial site assignment to my security screen, and then I would say, yes, I'd like to do some more of this. Preloads the database role to help facilitate the search. And let's say I want to assign user 1 also to site B00. I would just add that user again. So I can keep going through this process until I get my comprehensive list of how I want to assign my users and the sites that they're working with. And then I just simply click Grant Security, and it will grant all the access for the RDC study to these users. Similarly, let's say I had a site that that stopped its access, that no longer, or sorry, the site that shut down, and I wanted to revoke all access to that site. I would have the ability to go and query off all of the users who have access to that study, and perhaps go ahead and set it up so that all access to a particular site was then removed. Or say I just wanted to query the ones who had access to that particular site, and I wanted to select them all, and I say just remove their access to that site. I would select their site, I'd click Add Selected Users, and then I would say Revoke Security, and then it would take away all that security for those users. So this is a way to help manage your RDC study site security. Another feature of the system is to reset your passwords for your users. You can do it en masse if you like by selecting multiple users and then just clicking the Reset Password button. And what would happen is it will reset all of these users to temporary passwords and then send them notification via email. And then they would have to go in turn and verify their account again. Whoops. Apparently I had a problem. I don't know why, but let's go here. I need to look into that. But in this case, password was successfully reset. So the other feature is the lock-unlock accounts. In this case, you have two concepts. You have a soft lock and a hard lock. So the soft lock is what I was talking about earlier, that when you reset a password, it does put a lock on the account that the user will not be able to log into the account until they verify their credentials. In addition, an administrator has the ability to hard lock an account. And in this case, simply clicking lock account is going to put an administrative lock on the account. That administrative lock cannot be reset or cannot be undone by the user themselves. It has to be taken off by the administrator. That lock involves the database account and also involves disabling the OS account on the server. So all components become disabled when there is a lock on the account. And that goes for the soft lock and the hard lock. The difference between them is that the administrator is the only one who can remove a hard lock. Okay. So all of these operations that we've been working in have account logs associated with them. And this is the screen where you can query up what those logs are. Let's say I just wanted to see all of the operations that were done for my user, Mary Engler. I could just put the user account here in the filter field, and then I click Find Logs. Let's say I wanted to just see all the accounts that were created today. I could query for that. Once you get all this information available to you, you can click this link to download to Excel, and you can bring it down to your local machine for further processing. So here you can see I have it in Excel, and now I can go ahead and filter it or do whatever I'd like to do at that point. Similarly, there are email notification logs available, or again, every email that was sent when there was a bad email address, like an email was not sent, that gets flagged. In the case of this, where there is a problem sending an email, the administrator also gets notified. So that means that if there is a problem with an email address, that can get resolved. Everyone is notified about that particular problem, and so it can get resolved as soon as possible. This does accept a comma-delimited list of users as well for filtering. And again, you can download it to Excel. So there we are. It keeps the full log of this whole send operation. So in the case there was some problem with the server or something else that went wrong, that's available for review in terms of resolving the issue. And finally, there's a screen for managing these domain lists. And this is where we control which domains have access to the system and which do not. Now you can add a domain from the Create User screen and from the Edit User screen. In the case that it's not in here, it'll prompt to add it if you like. But you can also come in here and add your domain and control whether it has admin access or not. You can deactivate a domain, and what that means is that any future operations of creating an account will no longer allow that domain to be referenced. In the case the domain's not being utilized, you can actually delete it as well from the system, but in the case it's being utilized, it will prevent that. Finally, on the screens, every single screen has this help feature, which is context-sensitive help. When you click that, it gives you the help for the particular screen. So it serves as a sort of an online user guide to give the help to the user when they have questions about the different screens and what the functionalities are. In addition, there is a additional user guide for the administrator and one for end users, and an administrative guide that's available with the system, which is simply a document. So that concludes this portion of the demonstration. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat window, and then my colleague Eugene Semponov will be monitoring the questions and reading them to me, and then I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Before we move on to the Q&A session, I just want to remind everyone, like Michelle said, that you can type in your questions in the chat feature. Your name will not be mentioned, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and give it about 30 seconds for some more questions to be generated, and we'll get started. All right, as questions are being asked, we'll go to the first one. Do you have some built-in check on the Excel files used for mass account creation, or is it solely relied on the creator of the Excel files?
So in the case that these Excel files have an issue with them, the system checks it as it's loading it, and will actually flag that whatever the issue was. Let's say that there was some sort of discrepancy in how it was set up. That would get checked and flagged within the Excel file itself. So let's take a look at this file here again. I'm opening it in my other screen. So let's say that I tried to create user 2, and it had I took away the ops dollar, and it had OC and RDC access specified here. That would give an error because you have to have the ops dollar in the case OC access is specified, and it would flag it when I go to log it. So there's a check that's done while it's going through, and then again it gets flagged on an item-by-item basis, and we'll continue on to the next items in case of an error, and just notifying that there was a problem with a particular user.
Great. Next question is, can access to test mode access be granted?
Yes. All right, well, so Eugene, I'm not sure if that means test mode for the study, test mode for the environment. Certainly the system does provide ability to grant access to test elements. And in the case of database roles, which are utilized for giving access to test mode, you can customize this list of what the roles are and what they're called in your particular environment. And so in the case that you want like test data entry available, that would get populated in a metadata table to make it appear here and be available to be granted to the user. So if I didn't answer that question exactly correctly, please text another question and I'll follow up with it. But I think that's what that's referring to.
Do you have and can you show an automated audit report?
So in this case, an audit report would be, in terms of the Accel-Account Manager, all of the activities that happened on a certain account. So in this case, let's say I wanted to see everything that ever happened to Mary Engler's account, including all of the resets and retrieved usernames. What I would do is just query for that particular user, and then I would download that to Excel. And then you would have all of the information in terms of who did the operation, what happened, so here, who did the operation, what activity was done, what username was impacted, what IP address, what browser was utilized to do the operation. So this would be your report, your audit report of activities that occurred within the system.
Great. Next question is, how can the tool be made accessible in the internal network and the Internet?
That's a good question. So in this case, what happens is, let's say you have an environment where you have an RDC server or some other server that's available on the Internet, but you have your Oracle Clinical protected on your Internet. Now this is a common configuration. In this case, the tool, the application server component of it, would get installed on your Oracle Clinical Server for the administrative portion of the tool. In the case of the user tool, that part would get installed on your RDC server, and therefore the accesses and the URLs would be handled differently in terms of your IT settings, and it could be split up between those two environments.
Excellent. What are the validation requirements and approximate time required from install to validated use?
That's a really good question. So there is an extensive set of test scripts available for the tool, something like 160 test cases and 300 or 400 pages document. I mean, it's a very extensive document of test cases. Those take about 3 days to run. You know, there's a different requirements based on what the particular company's requirements are. You know, in terms of testing and PQ testing and all of those things. I can speak to how long it takes to install. I can speak to how long it takes to run the test cases we've written for the tool. But those other parts would have to be decided on a case-by-case basis based on internal constraints of your company. In terms of installing this tool, you know, and doing it in a documented way takes me between 4 and 8 hours depending on the complexity of the environment. The actual operation of installing it I can do in a couple of hours, but the operation of documenting that and doing everything according to quality standards, of course, increases that time significantly. And then as I mentioned, you know, the executing of the test cases takes approximately 3 days. From our standpoint, all the documentation is in place. You know, we have user requirements, functional requirements, the system design specification, unit testing. All of those things are in place already for the tool. So that's available, you know, from day one. And then as far as your internal policies or procedures, we tend to work with companies on identifying and speccing out what needs to happen in terms of actually installing and releasing the tool.
Great. Does the tool check if a user account is already in use when trying to create it?
It does, yes, absolutely. So what it does is, let's say I tried to create an account M. Engler, Opstal M. Mary Engler, or let's say there was already an account in the system, and that account was linked with the first and last name of Mary L. Engler or something like that. The system would identify that discrepancy and would notify at a creation time that there's this account that already has this username, but it has a different first and last name. Do you want to link these, or do you want to change your username? So that gets checked. But it also, in the case that everything lines up as expected, it will decide that that account is linked with what you're creating here. And that applies for the Unix account as well. So there's some logic in terms of trying to decide if that account belongs to this new user or if that account does not. Now in the case that this, and what I'm talking about here is when you have an account in Oracle Clinical that's not in Accel-Account Manager. That tends not to happen very much as you go forward because we import those accounts that are already being used into Accel-Account Manager, so we have our comprehensive list of accounts. And then if you go and try to add something that's in conflict in terms of first and last name or user account, or the email address, for example, you can only have one email address per user. You can't have multiple users referencing the same email address. So those kinds of checks are put in place, and notification, either an error or a warning, depending on what the particular check is provided to the user.
Can the tool be customized to meet specific needs? Well,
that's a good question too. And again, it's really hard to answer it in a general sense. Things that are already built in to be customized are like the way that the Unix accounts are created. The tool is linking up with some scripts that are run through sudo. those scripts can be modified. So in the case that you had some specific requirements on how your Unix accounts were created, you could modify that. It can also, all of the database lists are customizable. What security schemes are available for RDC, study site security, are customizable. So it's a hybrid question. Of course, we can enhance and we can modify. Doing a consulting project, that's always a possibility. And in addition, there are quite a few areas where, based on settings and metadata, what is shown and available to the user can also be customized. So I would encourage the asker of that question to follow up with Vicki Green in the case that they have a more specific requirement that they want to inquire about, whether the tool supports it or not. It's hard to answer that in a general sense.
Great. It looks like we have used up the allotted time we've had for this webinar, so that'll end our Q&A session. Michelle, if you don't mind showing Vicki's contact information in the meantime while I just close up here. There you go, thanks. So if you have other questions, please feel free to contact us. I would like to remind everyone that today's webinar will be available on biopharm.com within 24 hours for you to review and share with your colleagues. In addition, Michelle will be presenting the same webinar in just a few hours, 2 p.m. Eastern Time to be exact. If you believe a colleague could benefit from this participation or you would like to join again, feel free to have them register for this webinar. You can find the registration link on our events page. Also on the events page, you will also notice that we have several upcoming webinars, including one that's titled How to Easily Copy, Migrate, and Archive Oracle Clinical Studies and Global Libraries. So feel free to register for that one as well if it's of interest. That said, we want to thank you for your participation and hope that the information we provided you today was helpful. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to follow up with Vicki Green. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day.